Hi, I'm Matthias with Pasture Pioneers, and today I wanted to show you guys how we make a thermal compost pile and how easy that is. Okay, so today we're going to build a thermal composting pile, and to do that you need green material, brown material, and nitrogen. For your brown material, it's basically anything that's brown, that's dead, leaves, any type of dead plants. So we ended up using corn stalks from the garden that were just sitting in there and they were dried. And then green material is any material that has been harvested green. So for that, we used some weeds that we had pulled from the garden and then some sweet potato vines as well from our sweet potatoes that we had just harvested. And for the nitrogen, we're using manure, and we're using chicken manure, sheep manure, and pig manure. We will add in like kitchen scraps. You can get creative with what type of material to use, like your brown material. It can be leaves, it can be some sticks. You just don't want anything too big or a lot of too big material because it's not going to break down the first round. It could also be wood chips. The smaller the material is from the start, the sooner it's going to break down. And basically, the more variety you can have in your pile, the better it's going to do. You don't necessarily want just one source of all three of those ingredients. So we're building a 4x4x4 cube size pile, and that's really the size that you need in order to get started. Anything smaller than that, the outside doesn't heat up as enough. For the ratios for the pile, you want to use 45% green material, 45% brown material, and 10% nitrogen. Now, if you can also use plant-based nitrogen, like your legumes, any type of plant that has nitrogen fixed in it, but you'll have to increase the ratio for the nitrogen with that to 20%. Things you might want to avoid adding in your pile: you don't want to add hay that has been sprayed with Grazon or some type of herbicide, even animals that have eaten that hay, and you don't want to use that manure in your composting pile because that's going to negatively affect your garden. There's pros and cons to using this method of composting. Some of the cons would be the amount of work that's involved, and the other con would be you really want to build it all at one time, so you have to get your materials together and like have your browns and greens separate in a pile, leave those sit until you're ready to build the pile. Benefits of doing thermal composting is the shorter time frame that you have for using it. With this pile that I just made here, it could be ready in as little as 8 weeks. So essentially you want it to heat up minimum of 120 degrees. 130 is more ideal, 130 to 150. It should reach that in a couple days here. Now once it reaches that temperature, I'm going to leave it sit for 3 days, and then after that period I'll flip it and let it reach temperature again, let it sit for 3 days, and repeat the process. And we'll do that 3 times, taking the stuff that's on the outside of the pile and putting it to the middle so that everything has a chance to heat up. The benefits of using your own compost would be the nutrients are more readily available than if you use like a bag compost from the store. And the other thing is, if you buy compost and it's bagged, all that good bacteria is not going to be active anymore because it needs oxygen in order to grow. Something that you might have a concern with is the smell. In my experience, if you build it properly, it really doesn't have much of a smell. If you're within 5 feet of it, you might smell it. This pile that we just made should be enough to do a large portion of our garden. Okay, so it is 2 days since we built our pile, and it has come up to temperature. It's actually sitting at 160 degrees right now, which is on the high end. As you can tell, it also has shrunk a good bit. It's probably dropped about a foot in height. So it came to temperature about, I think it was about 24 hours after I built it. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this pile probably tomorrow. It'll be about 3 days at that point. So I'll turn it then, and I'll wait for it to come up to temperature again. And then I will turn it again. And we'll do that a total of 3 times. If your thermal compost pile heats up that much, it's going to kill weed seeds. We didn't want those seeds to end up surviving through this compost pile. Now, the things to keep in mind when turning your pile would be, as it continues to heat up, it's releasing a lot of that moisture, and if you come out in like on a cold morning, you actually see like steam coming up off of it. So when you turn your pile, you have to keep that in mind and make sure it's not drying out too much. You may need to add water to it when you do that. And we're going to leave some links to some of the stuff that we've used in this compost pile, like the thermometer. So if you want to try it yourself, it helps us if you buy it through these links. Hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see in the future from us.